What is up, guys? Welcome in, everybody, to Kurt Magoosh Sports. And today we are going to talk about Will Stein. Now, Will Stein, as it looks like some cat furs on this microphone, but Will Stein was just hired by the University of Oregon to be the offensive coordinator at the University of Oregon. This is a big deal. And this is a very interesting hire by Dan Lanning. I believe that this is kind of a splash hire because Will Stein is 33 years old. He has been around Jeff Traylor, who has gone 30-9 back-to-back Conference USA championships at UTSA. Jeff Traylor has done one of the great jobs in turning around the Roadrunner football. And it was Jeff Traylor, it was Barry Lunney. Barry Lunney, if you remember, was the interim coach at Arkansas. Barry Lunney was an Arkansas guy. Then Barry ended up going to Illinois this year. And Barry Lunney and Troy Walters and Brett Bielema put together a tremendous 8-4 season. All right, Barry Lunney was the offensive coordinator at UTSA, and basically Barry Lunney did a tremendous job in getting the Roadrunners to be undefeated. And Frank Harris is a really good lefty quarterback, and this was a team, UTSA, that has only had football for, I believe, 15 years, and they're not even that well funded out there in San Antonio, Texas. So, you know, this hire, guys, is one of the crazier hires that really that I can remember. It's they didn't promote Junior Adams or Drew Maringer, and basically, I love Marshall Malchow. And I love Dan Lanning. Marshall Malchow again. Malchow and Lanning are running this show. And I like how at Oregon, the boosters and the athletic director, Rob Mullins, is allowing Dan Lanning to create his own staff. And that's what Dan Lanning did last year. He selected Kenny Dillingham, a guy who was 32 years old, a guy that has never really called any plays, a guy that was there with Mike Norvell for a while and was kind of Mike Norvell's intern for a really long time, and Mike Norvell's kind of guy. So the fact is about Dan Lanning, I trust Lanning and I trust Marshall Malchow. They were able to go ahead and I think all the hires at Oregon have been great. I think this should have been a 10-2 season. They went there and got Demetrius Martin, and all Martin has done is taking Christian Gonzalez's game from here to here. Bennett Williams, here to here. Christian Gonzalez it was one of the best corners in all of college football. He was a top 3 corner. You couldn't throw on Christian Gonzalez. Gonzalez took his height and his size, and he was one of the best players in college football, and he looks like a guy that's even going to play at the next level and be coveted at the next level. So Meat Martin was a great hire. Junior Adams helped add to this offense. Okay, Junior Adams got Chase Cota playing the best ball of his career. You know, got Franklin playing well. The guy who, caught the long touchdowns for Oregon. So Junior Adams is Carlos Lachlan. Locke was a guy who was at Western Kentucky as a running backs coach. This guy was a police officer 6 years ago. Dan Lanning hires him at Oregon as the running backs coach, and he's one of the best running back coaches in all the country. You saw Whittington, you saw Bucky Irving, how they ran the football this year. So I trust Dan Lanning. And if we look back to this year's games, other than the Georgia game, that Washington game, Michael Penix played out of his mind. Bo Nix got hurt. Oregon could have won that game. And then you also look back to Oregon State. They just got physically beaten in that game. Dillingham was already 1 foot out the door. And basically, like the cupboard on the defensive line needs guys in the trenches. The defensive line needs a cycle of people that can really stop the running game. And because I'll tell you what, Cameron Ward really hurt this Oregon football team. If we go back to the season, the best win Oregon had was maybe at Arizona, where they absolutely killed Arizona, or it was maybe the way that they played in UCLA with the onside kick working and the offense just being tremendous. So, I mean, the offense all year, I know that you could say that they beat up on bad Pac-12s, but the offense all year put up points in the 30s, and Bo Nix was really good. And Bo Nix, I believe, should be a third-round quarterback and actually should start some games in the NFL, especially if Heineke and Kyle Allen are starting games. I mean, shoot. Sam Ehlinger started games. Bo Nix can start games. But anyway, so you look at all the decisions Lanning made. Bo Nix, Kenny Dillingham, Junior Adams, bringing in Drew Maringer, who was much maligned for his time at Rutgers, who's a guy in the profession that has been considered to ruffle feathers before. Brings in a guy, Adrian Clem, who struggled a lot at the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay? That wasn't a good running back team, who was part of that Jim Morris scandal with recruiting. Dan Lanning brings in these guys, and it's been a great staff. It was a cohesive staff, okay? It could have been I would say 10-2 would have been the right number, because that Washington State game, they got lucky, and then I would say that Washington game, they got kind of unlucky. So those are the toss-up games, right? The Washington teams, okay, Washington State easily could have been a loss. And then, so you look at it, you're easily 9 wins, and your 9 wins were not even close. Those were 2-possession blowouts all the way through. They were a really consistent team, and if they hung on against Oregon State, it could have been a 10-win season. So that's really, really good. If the team was healthy, like Bo was healthy, the defense was a little bit healthier, I really believe that Oregon would have been able to, especially also you look at the center, Alex Fortriff was hurt. So if Oregon was all the way healthy, they would have won even more games. But let's talk about Will Stein, all right? So I guess we'll have an endpoint right here. So William Stein. Will Stein is a guy who grew up in Louisville. He played football at Louisville as a quarterback. I believe he was a 6-foot quarterback at Louisville. Probably some pretty good offenses back then. It might have been, I don't know, it was the head coach of Louisville back then, but I know that they had explosive offenses. They played Big East football versus Rutgers, versus Connecticut, versus all these other places. Then he ended up being like a grad assistant probably at Louisville. Then he was under, what's his name? I'll tell you what he was under. He was under Charlie Strong's staff at Texas. So we got that great experience there. And even though they didn't win, you know, you have Tom Herman, or not Herman, but you have really good people that are on that Texas staff. So, you know, Marshall Malchow and Dan Lanning have this list. It's like the Bible, basically, for football coaches. It's a list of people. So Dan Lanning has acquired over his years as he's clinicked with guys. So Dan Lanning was at Sam Houston State with Matty Pallage. Coach Pallage, I believe that Lanning and Pallage overlapped from like 2014 to 2015. And during that time, what I believe happened is Dan Lanning interfaced with Lake Travis kids and with Will Stein. So I believe in the mid-2000s, that's how Lanning and Stein, in the mid-2010s, that's where I believe that Lanning and Stein were able to accumulate this relationship. I also believe that Marshall Malchow was at Rice or something maybe. So I believe that in the mid-2010s, that's how these guys became very close. So Lanning has a group of people, a group of coaches, that he has a very tight inner circle of people that he texts and that he talks to. And I love this move from Dan Lanning. It reminds me of the Eagles coaching staff. You know, the Eagles, they ended up firing Doug Peterson late in the process. They waited till the last second. They didn't get, you know, Brian Daboll, or they didn't get, Frank Reich. They ended up getting Nick Sirianni, who was a guy who didn't even call the plays in Indianapolis, who was under Frank Reich. and now he ends up being the coach of the year in the NFL. He's barely lost games. Jonathan Gannon was an assistant defensive coordinator, and then Shane Steichen. So a lot of times assistants could be stars, but a lot of times they're not thought of. And Dan Lanning essentially here with this hire, he got Will Stein, who first of all is not even the head OC. He's a co-offensive coordinator for a school, for a UTSA Group of 5 school. So this is a really big. I like this hire because it's not a retread hire. You know, Nebraska, they ended up hiring Mark Whipple, and Mark Whipple didn't run the damn football at all. Mark Whipple was a coach at Massachusetts for a long time. He spearheaded Kenny Pickett and that offense. So this isn't a flashy name. This isn't a Joe Brady. This isn't Garrett Riley. These are coordinators that are very good, by the way. But this is a guy in Will Stein that I believe, unless the offense absolutely explodes, I believe that Will Stein, the good news is that Louisville, too, is going to hire somebody. Louisville's probably the one job where Will Stein, if he got offered a head coaching job, would go back to. This looks like a guy that can really grow and be the offensive coordinator with Lanning for a good 4 to 5 year run. Look at what Alabama did. They got Bill O'Brien. And Bill O'Brien was nowhere near Sark, was nowhere near Lane Kiffin, and I guess those guys are big-name offensive coordinators, but even Mike Locksley led a really good offense. Brian Dable at that time wasn't a highly sought-after name. So the fact is that Bill O'Brien, multiple coaching stops, all this experience doesn't always equal expertise. So UTSA was freaking great with Frank Harris. It was a running offense, but Will Stein got the most out of those wide receivers. Will Stein was also I'll tell you where Will Stein was too. Will Stein was at Lake Travis High School in 2016. So I'm actually going to go ahead right now, and I'm going to pull up what the bio is of Will Stein, all right, on the UTSA coaching page, which is still up there. So Will Stein, by the way, he went over with Jeff Traylor. I'll tell you what he did. So they set records. DeCorian Clark, all right, says he's caught in his years. No, Cephas, Franklin, and Clark combined, the wide receivers, 25 touchdown catches and 2,585 yards between these three receivers, okay? So, he did a tremendous job there. Lake Travis High School, 26-4. Now, Lake Travis, you could say anybody can go there and can win in Austin. But very, very good. So Lake Travis is an offensive coordinator, 54 touchdowns, 31 touchdowns on the ground. Worked with Charlie Strong. So this guy is about 33 years old. Travis was great, and UTSA was awesome. And Dan Lanning, I'm sure, with Matt Palich. Matt Palich worked in the state of Texas at Baylor for a long time, and Matt Palich was at Sam Houston State. So they have roots in the state of Texas, put it that way. So I love this signing. I love this Will Stein signing because, excuse me, I think that this is a gem signing for Oregon. This is why I love Oregon, because they're creative. Oregon is willing to do things in the Dan Lanning way. Dan Lanning only takes guys that he knows intimately well and trusts intimately. Everything in the organization is meticulous, and that's why I like it. There's not a lot of loose ends here with the coaching staff, and that's really how I would run a coaching staff too. I think your chemistry has to be tremendous if you're ever going to have a lifelong or a great, stable coaching staff, and you got to have great people in your facility and in your building. And you look at all of Oregon's coaches, and that's kind of what it's all about. So Kenny Dillingham, I love Dillingham. I'm actually, Arizona State, I'm really fascinated by what they're building over there at Arizona State. But Will Stein going to the University of Oregon, this to me just, Some people are not going to like it. It's a wait and see for everybody, just like Dillingham was. But I'm confident just in what Lanning's approach is. And I'd be lying to you if I said I saw a whole lot of UTSA football, except when they may be playing their title game. But the job that I know Jeff Traylor did, because they didn't have a whole lot of resources and money at UTSA, the staff that Traylor put there and the product and team that they've built there has been a consistent winner, and it's one of the more impressive coaching jobs that you'll see in the country. I think that Jeff Traylor is a guy who doesn't get talked about a lot, and you look at what Barry Lunney did at Illinois this year, man, oh man, it's an exciting time for Oregon. I like this hire a lot.